Welcome back, everyone. So what we have here is a Delco fan. This is, I think this is a 16-inch. Let's grab a tape measure and see for sure. Actually, more like, I think it's classified as a 16, but it's a bit more like a 15 and a half inch blade. But a machine like this was built to do one thing and one thing only, and that is to move air on hot, steamy summer days just like this one. This fan was given to me by a coworker. I asked him if he wanted any money for it, and he said no, so I didn't give him anything for it, but probably should have. But anyway, this unit is actually made entirely from cast aluminum, it looks like. So painting this is going to be a bit of a challenge. I'm going to have to use a self-etching primer, I think, at a bare minimum. The motor casing is stamped steel, where it looks to be extruded. And the motor backing is aluminum or alloy. The base is definitely not steel. It's some kind of an aluminum. So a little bit different techniques to be used in something like this. It's got a steel carrying handle. Very similar to a GE of similar vintage. I estimate this to be from about 1930, early 1930s. I thought it was late 20s, but I think these are a little bit newer than that. Probably a little bit older than my GE Vortelex. But what I like about this Delco is it has that old, simple four-bladed fan, four-bladed screw, which is a very simple design. These were common up until the 1940s, I think, and then they started going with the more aerodynamic and more efficient blade designs. But I just love the look of these old blades. Very nice look to it. Very simple. The blade is aluminum. Wiring is in pretty rough shape. It's got a lamp cord on it that somebody stuck on there, and it's got an old plug. God only knows what the plug looks like underneath, but we're going to plug it in and see how she runs. I'm going to run this extension cord over to that outlet right there, and we'll see what goes on. My plans for this fan are pretty simple. I'm going to try to delicately remove the head badge so it doesn't get damaged, and I'm going to disassemble the entire fan completely, and then we're going to strip all the paint off. I'm going to have to be very careful with this. I don't want to damage this data plate. It's a Delco model. Let's get the light on here. 700? No, there's still more space dust on this model. I think it says 1700. We've got a service number, volts 110, 60 cycles. The bottom cover, let's take a look at that for a second. Let's get it on its back. Bottom cover is thick steel. Now, something like this, we can get a bottle of, or a jug of Evapo-Rust, and we can let this soak. We'll take this off and let it soak. In the Evapo-Rust, is it screwed on, or is it? Yeah, it's screwed on. 1, 2, 3 screws there. This thing will need to be fully rewired, unfortunately. But the head wire is original, and because it's pretty well oil soaked, not so sure I'm going to trust that too much. But yeah, I don't know if I'm going to want to probably replace that. I believe this has a speed coil in the base. I'm not really sure how it's wired, but we're going to take it apart and we're going to see what that looks like. Okay, so before we dive in, I want to talk a little bit about antique fans and a little bit about why I guess I'll just say it, I collect them. I really don't collect antique fans. It's not one of those obsessions of mine. I don't have a room filled with them. I actually acquire them for more practical purposes. So, if you follow my video series on fixing up this old 1950s ranch house, you probably have heard me state many times that I simply refuse to air condition my home. Mainly because I never had air conditioning growing up, and living in the Northeast United States, it's not really a necessity. I understand that in some parts of the U.S. and other parts of the world, especially in India, God, I feel so bad for you guys, air conditioning is pretty much a means of survival. But for moderate climates like mine, you can live without AC. Now, if you've ever gone shopping for a fan for your bedroom, living room, what have you, you've realized, if you're of the same mindset as I am, there really are no fans built today that are worth buying. They're all crap, and they're crap because people aren't willing to pay as much as they used to pay for them, because they'd rather just pay for air conditioning at that point. And companies just aren't, the companies building them, actually I think they're all in China now, they're just trying to do as much with as little as possible in terms of materials and cost. So we've come to a point where the products that are on the market today are just barely passable as functioning appliances, and it's really sad. But there was a time when an electric fan was a luxury. It was an object to be fawned over, and this 1930s Delco is one such appliance. They were built with absolute durability, longevity, and efficiency in mind. These units they will move air better than anything made today, better than anything made in the past 30 years. And they will do it forever. As of right now, I have a 1941 GE Vortelex cranking its heart away in my living room. And let me tell you, it felt nice sitting in front of that sucker watching some, reruns of old TV shows or even movies. So, I don't acquire these fans for the sake of acquiring them. I acquire them to use them. I have one in my bedroom that I use at night, in addition to a ceiling fan. See, when you don't have AC, you get creative. Even running 2 electric fans, or 3 electric fans, I'm still not approaching the energy consumed by a single air conditioning unit. And it just so happens that the air in my office over there is mighty stale when I'm down there working, and it would be nice to have another fan to use down here. Actually, I do have that Fasco box fan, which is currently, I was using it, oh, there it is, it's over there. I was using that to power ventilate the basement after I cleaned up some oil stains in the concrete over there. But that's going to be used for, wherever I need a lot of air moved around. That's where that's going to go. But anyway, back to the Delco. So this one, I'm not sure whether I'm going to put this up in my bedroom or in the office, but it's going to be put to work. So that leads me to my next point. When you acquire one of these from a yard sale or a friend or even the trash, what do you do what's the first thing you do with one of these old fans? Well, this one seems to have all the common problems that you're going to find on just about any antique fan that you come across on eBay, a garage sale, a yard sale, etc., etc. It has janky wiring. It has crusty old oil. Now, this particular model is fitted with an oil cup, and an oil cup and a very old wick. And the oil is still clearly good and wet, which is a good sign. It means that somebody more than likely took care of this and oiled it on occasion. It's unfortunate when you find one of these that has been used a lot and never maintained. This one has had some maintenance done to it over the years. So you're going to find dried, crusty lubricants both in the gearbox, if it's an oscillating model, as well as in the bearings in the front and rear as well. Now this model also has an oiler on the back. Some of them don't have oilers. Some of them take their oil from the gearbox. Some later Vortelex models, GE Vortelexes, have that setup as well. You're going to find some bent hardware. This one's got a bent, it's got a bent set screw key for the head adjustment, the tilt adjustment. It's got some pretty nasty paint, but what's the first thing you should do when you buy one of these or acquire it? Well, it sounds a little bit harsh, but my take on this, and everybody has their own opinion on this, but the first thing you want to do, even if the blades spin freely, is to just disassemble the motor. Take the front and rear housing halves off, depending on how it's built. They're all different, and just start clean the armature, the shaft ends where the bearings ride. You want to clean the bearings thoroughly with a degreasing solution. I use WD-40. Some people might disagree with that, but that's what I use. Clean the oil cups out, put in a new wick. You can buy the wicks on eBay. Speaking of which, I actually have some left over from an old project I did. Here are my fan wicks. There's some in here. Just laid eyes on them not too long ago. Oh, is that it right there? Nope. I'll show you what I'm talking about. Let me show you. Oh, right here. So this is your typical fan wick. Might not be the right diameter, but we'll make it work. It's bought and paid for, right? But this company, Vintage Wire and Supply Co., they're out of Amherst, Ohio. They are not paid for this ad, but I'm just sharing their info since I'm happy to have bought from them in the past. They will sell you replacement wicks. They will sell you electrical cords that are period correct for your antique fan. A lot of neat little parts for common models. I actually... yeah, that's about the right diameter. No, it's a little thicker, but we'll make it work. So, not a big deal. But mainly the first thing you want to do is address any safety concerns. Unless you're doing a full restoration anyway. If I wanted to run this just as it is, I would just take the motor apart, clean the bearings, clean the armature. That's the part of the motor that spins. The stator is the part that's stationary. That's okay. So, yes, address any safety concerns. This wiring, actually, this wire is in pretty good shape. I don't see any damage to this wire particularly. But I do see this. Now, this concerns me greatly because this could be severely hazardous. And as a matter of fact, let's just see how hazardous this really is before we go any further. As a side note, we were talking earlier about how these antique electric fans do a very nice job of keeping you cool in the summer in the absence of air conditioning. And it just so happens that my girlfriend is enjoying the Lakewood box fan that I placed in the bedroom, and she is nice and cool up there. The Lakewood, one of the old P series with the 3-bladed metal blade unit. Oh yeah, such a nice fan. Anyway, so let's take this electrical tape off. So there we go. We're going to take this off, unwrap it. Let's just see just how nasty this really is, because I have a very bad feeling that I'm going to find something really stupid under all this tape. Somebody felt that this was dangerous enough to wrap it pretty excessively. Oops, sorry, I didn't mean to hit you there. Anyway, let's see. Look at, it's like a whole roll of tape here. Actually, it isn't that bad. It's not that bad at all. There's no damage to the plug. This is a nice, by the way, when you find plugs like this, these are reusable. And you can, there's normally a cardboard cover that just kind of clips on here. And if you really care enough, you can probably make a new cover, but it's not cracked. This is actually nice. This is an old Bakelite plug. These are good to have because this is probably original to the fan. The cord is not original. This is a replacement cord. This would have had a cloth cord attached to it. Now when I replace this cord, I'm going to replace it with a rayon, black woven rayon cord. These are a reproduction cord that a company like Vintage Wire and Supply Co. would sell me. So we're going to plug this back in. We know it's nothing too scary here. With really a lot of show and no go. So let's get this thing turned on here. I have not lubricated the motor. That's my next point. You don't want to just take the temptation of dumping oil into the bearings, and no, you don't want to do that. You want to clean out what's already there thoroughly. If you do that, if you don't do that, you run the risk of causing premature, no, thing is 80, 90 years old. It's not premature wear, but you're going to cause wear on what would be an otherwise perfectly good motor. Because there could be other, you know, think about this. You've got 90 years worth of dirt, dust, metal. There's going to be some metal kind of ground up in there. You don't want to run it like that. You want to clean it out, get some fresh oil in there. Okay, let's get it started. Now on this model, high is the first position setting. Looks like we got the oscillator on. Now I gotta be honest, I have a good feeling about this one. Now I've only turned this on once before, and that was when it was given to me at my office. But one of the great things about this fan is I don't hear any bearing noise. Now, you may find that on some fans, I'm gonna get this turned off here. Looks like they engaged the oscillator with a pair of pliers, which is always fun. So I'm gonna have to get a pair of vice grips or something. Now the fan that's in my bedroom right now, the one that's on my desk, there we go, is a fan that I found that actually been sitting in a shed for many years. See now I gotta, let's try this here. So, real quick, these oscillator clutches, to fully engage them, you thread this down, this knob all the way clockwise. This is pretty typical. I know in GEs they're made this way. Thread it all the way down, and then until it starts to grab, and then give it a quick nudge. Don't ever use pliers to do that. To disengage and lock the fan head in position, unscrew it all the way until you feel resistance, and then give it a good nudge, and that keeps the head stationary. Okay, fire it up. The switch is going to need some work. That's okay. Alright, so now we're running it on high. It's very quiet. It moves a lot of air. A lot of air. Oh my god. This is a good unit. Very nice, very nice. Let's check it on medium. Okay, we got medium. And we're gonna go down to low. Okay. So this thing works in all three speeds. I don't hear any vibration. I don't hear any bearing noise. I don't feel any vibration. Don't hear any bearing noise. Bearings feel good and tight. Now, if you find one of these old fans that has loose or worn bearings, typically it's the front bearing that goes first. That's the one that gets all the wear and tear. The back bearing, it really depends though on how well it was built or it was maintained or not throughout its life. But the front bearings are usually the first to go, and what can happen is it's okay to have lateral movement. A little bit of movement, that's front to back. But what you don't want is you can have longitudinal movement, but you don't want lateral movement. And by that I mean you don't want the shaft to move up and down like this. You don't want it to go up and down at all. You should not feel anything when you're... Yeah, you shouldn't feel anything that way. If there's wear in the front bearing, some of them are replaceable, but you may need a machinist to give you a hand. A machinist with access to proper tools, like a lathe, and you're going to need some oilite. These bearings are made of a material called oilite, which is basically sintered bronze, I believe. And what oilite does is it absorbs oil, and unfortunately it does wear out. So anyway, so this is a prime candidate for a restoration. Now the restorations that I do are not concourse class, high-end quality. I don't have the time, patience, or money for that. What I typically do is a complete teardown, and I'm going to take this this grill here, and I'm going to try to get as much paint off of it as I can within reason, and I'm going to repaint it. But I'm also going to straighten things out. Like we've got a bent, not a bent strut, but we've got a bent metal band here. These metal bands that go around, sometimes they get bent. The struts are what support the grill cover. Those are the parts that actually screw to the motor housing. But sometimes these get bent, and we're just going to kind of work it out little by little. But anyway, so that's kind of my pre-restoration, pre-rejuvenation video on this fan. I'm gonna, you know what I want to do is I want to now see how because I need to start ordering parts. So what I'm going to be ordering is I've got to buy some paint, and for this I'm going to use an epoxy black, like a chassis paint for cars, good and durable. We're going to keep it original. I'm going to have to get myself a can of primer. I don't want to scratch up that head badge. I'm going to put this underneath me. You don't want to scratch up those head badges because they are impossible to replace sometimes. Flat blade screwdriver. Why don't we take a look inside the motor base and see what we're dealing with in there? So this has been apart before. Now I'm going to get myself a jug of Evapo-Rust, and I'm going to use that to remove the rust from this plate. I don't want to, I've learned that, certain modern materials and chemicals are far superior to the methods that I once used in the past, because they can gently remove finishes, rust, and other things. So I've got one screw that will not come out without provocation, so I might have to be real careful with this one. You don't want to strip these out. So let me grab it. So one of the greatest tools to have in your shop is one of these. This is a screw remover extractor. What it does is it uses the impact of just a slight tap of a hammer to loosen stubborn screws. And how it works is when you apply force to the back of this tool, it causes the tip to rotate in whichever direction you want it to rotate. You just simply twist push it in and twist, and that changes the direction. So this is the position we want it in, because we want to impact the screw out. Now, okay, these flat blades are, there we go, and that's how you do it. screw is now loose. We didn't break anything. The tool did its job. All's well in the world. Sometimes you get lucky. Sometimes you don't. So you can buy one of these at your local auto parts store. They're not that expensive. I think I paid like 20-30 bucks for this one. And I actually used this very tool to disassemble a moped engine with a modified JIS screw gun bit, and it worked. Did the job. Alright, so I got that screw out. There we go. Now, let's see what we're dealing with inside here. Alright. Wow, I'm actually quite impressed. Whoever put that wire, take a look at this. You seeing this, guys? Take a look at this. Whoever did the wiring on here, on this thing, they actually bothered to put ring terminals. Yeah, there is a speed coil in there. And it looks like oh, this is going to be an easy one. So the wiring going to the head, can you see this? It's just 2 wires. Now that makes it a lot easier because a lot of these are going to have 4 wires or 3 wires for the multi-speeds. So rather than, so what Delco has done here is that they've got a standard motor with just a single coil. That's it. Nothing fancy. There's what a multi-speed motor will often have is up to, 2 or 3 coils of varying wire lengths to achieve different speeds. And whichever one you engage 1, 2, or 3, that's how you get your 3 speeds. Now, a fan that uses a speed coil, all of that resistance, those varying resistance settings, it's all done right here. Look at that. She's a dinosaur. Delco. But yeah, that's good. That's what I want to see. Now this plate, we're going to have to take this plate and we're going to soak that in evapor-rust. I don't have that stuff right now. This is really just a preliminary. Let's just see what we need for materials and go from there. And hard part's done. So this is going to be a very easy fan to work on because it's very easy to wire up. The units that are going to have the 3 or 4 wire head wires going up there, those are a little bit of a pain in the ass to the newbie or someone who's not, that electrically savvy. I mean, the first one I ever did was exactly what I'm talking. I think it was a 3-wire unit, and I couldn't for the life of me figure out how it was wired, and it took a lot of trial and error and using a multimeter to figure out resistances, and it was a process, but I got it done. But this one's going to be a little easier. So all I got to do is order maybe 10 feet or so, give myself some wire to work with of a choice rayon coated wire, and that'll be for the rewiring of this fan. So anyway, get some evapor-rust, get some paint strippers, some paint, we'll be on our way. So stay tuned for a later video on the restoration. Right now we're going to take a break. I'm going to go to bed. It's getting late. Thank you for watching. And we'll have to put this away for now. Okay. Stay cool.